With the final expansion of Control being released this week, I wanted to make sure everyone was prepared for the craziness to come. For those of us who have experienced the story of Alan Wake previously, this is something we have been looking forward to for a decade. The continuation of Alan's story is something that I personally was unsure would ever happen. Now that it is, I did not want to forget that some newcomers to the Remedy fandom have only experienced Control and may be unaware of who this character is. Well, you're in luck. This video is designed just for you. For any of you who need a quick refresher, stick around as well. Within Control, there are several documents littered throughout the Oldest House that reference the Bright Falls AWE as well as the missing writer. They give a brief account of the events but do not go into full details. Today, we will discuss the 7 things you need to know before the AWE expansion. It goes without saying that if you want to experience the story in full, I recommend playing it for yourself. To start off, Alan Wake is a famous novelist who wrote a 6-part series that follows the adventures of a hard-boiled NYPD detective named Alex Casey. The story within these books roughly follows the events found in Remedy's first story-driven game, Max Payne. In essence, Max Payne and Alex Casey are the same character. Before the game begins, the final book in the series concludes with the death of Casey.
7 years and 6 books is a long time. He was a gloomy guy to spend all your working hours with, and it was a good run. But it's time to explore new things. My next book will be a departure from the old for me.
Wake intended to move on to a new character and story after this, however, he developed writer's block. Over the next 2 years, the pressure from his agent, his fans, and mass media as a whole drove him into a volatile state. He was plagued by insomnia, began drinking heavily, and even assaulted a journalist who approached him in the street. Worried for her husband, Alice Wake came across a book entitled The Creator's Dilemma that was intended to help artists with their mental blockages. The author of The Creator's Dilemma had a clinic located in Bright Falls, Washington, so she planned a vacation for the 2 of them to get away. During the vacation, she intended to introduce Alan to this author, who she had spoken to about her husband's situation. Upon arriving, they received keys to a cabin located in the middle of Cauldron Lake. Shortly afterwards, Alice is abducted and dragged deep into the darkness of the waters. Just as the Oldest House has gates to other realities, Cauldron Lake acts as the entry point to a threshold called the Dark Place. This threshold is a reality of pure creation. A single thought can shift the world around you. For any Control fans, this dimension is the reality found through the spiral doorway within the Ocean View Motel. Due to how chaotic the human mind is, the Dark Place is hostile to human life. Energy from this threshold leaks out of the lake, and as a result, any creator who makes a genuine work of art within the vicinity can alter reality. The trouble is there's always going to be those who abuse this power. One intelligence that is native to the Dark Place attempts to do this. The Dark Presence slipped out of the cracks of the lake and abducted Alice. It held her ransom, her life in exchange for a story that would release it from its prison. While under its influence, Alan wrote the majority of a manuscript that would conclude with the Dark Presence consuming the world. Partway through, however, Alan became conscious enough to reach out to an older poet for assistance. Within the cabin that Alan was trapped in while he wrote was a shoebox full of poems by a man named Thomas Zane. Alan borrowed from them and eventually made Thomas a character within his story. The old poet rescued Wake from the cabin, and after escaping, Alan woke up in a car crash with no memory of his week in captivity. Thomas Zane was a poet from the 70s who lived in the cabin on Cauldron Lake with his girlfriend, Barbara. One night, Barbara drowned in the lake, and Thomas abused the energies of the place to bring her back to life. However, the Dark Presence is what came back wearing Barbara's skin instead. Afraid of the mistake he had made, Thomas wrote himself and Barbara out of the world and dove together into the depths of the lake. During his time writing in the cabin, Thomas was aided by his assistant, Emil, who spurred him on to keep writing, to keep using the power.
Zane could feel the poems, taking form, shaping things. As he experimented, he imagined he could almost feel the power surging through the keys of the typewriter. It exhilarated him. But there was fear, too. If not for his young assistant Emil, he would have given it up. But Emil convinced him otherwise. He too had a way with words.
This man turned out to be Dr. Emil Hartman, the author of The Creator's Dilemma and the man whom Alice intended to have her husband meet. Before moving on, I want to comment that as a result of Zane's actions, all of his stories and even his name was erased from the world. However, Jessie has mentioned Thomas Zane before in her therapy sessions, quoting some of his poems.
You mentioned a poem we talked. By Thomas Zane?
Yes. Beyond the shadow you settle for, there's a miracle illuminated.
I looked the poem up. Only I couldn't find any poet by that name.
There are two possibilities for this. As part of his final poem, Thomas made it so anything kept within a shoebox was immune from the world-altering effects of the Dark Place. Or, Alan mentions that those who have been touched by the power to alter reality are able to remember the previous one. After progressing through the story of his own creation, Alan is knocked unconscious and brought to Dr. Hartman's facility, the Cauldron Lake Lodge. Here, he is heavily drugged, and Hartman attempts to convince him that Alice is dead, and her passing triggered a series of psychotic delusions. The entire time, he keeps telling Alan that part of his therapy is to write. Due to Hartman's experience working with Zane, he is well aware of the power of Cauldron Lake. However, he is not an artist, and as such is unable to tap into its power. What he does is bring broken artists to his lodge, which is constructed on the cliff overlooking the lake. He controls their work to ensure that what they create is what he wants them to create. In this manner, he has control of altering reality here. By the conclusion of this section, Hartman is knocked unconscious and wakes up the following day. We learn that he was conducting some form of research here and has been working with an unknown third party. Abandoning the lodge, he leaves Bright Falls, and 10 years later, Alan includes him in a new story that is centered around Jessie entering the investigation sector. Before leaving the lodge, Alan meets two senile old men named Odin and Tor Anderson. Just like Zane and Wake, they played with the powers of Cauldron Lake. They were founding members of a heavy metal band called the Old Gods of Asgard. When Ati hands over his cassette player to Jessie, the song inside is a tune by the Old Gods. This song helps her make it through the ashtray maze. Based upon this, we know that Ati and the Andersons are friends. When Jessie heads to the Foundation, we hear Ati laughing that the Swedish brothers can't handle the heat of his sauna. Back at the lodge, the Old Gods guide Alan as well, leading him to their farm and instructing him that one of their songs will guide him. Unlike Wake and Zane, who reshape reality, the Andersons seem to be more akin to prophets. At the farm, the brothers have a distillery to make homemade moonshine and uses the water from Cauldron Lake as an active ingredient.
Wow! Those geezers had quite a production going on. Ooh, you know what, Al? If we make it through this alive, I'm gonna start representing them. Yep, sell this stuff online, maybe get a reality show going, release a new single.
Good luck with that, pal.
When under the influence of their moonshine, they have visions, and the lyrics of their songs are based upon these prophecies.
It's 1976. Madness reigns at the Anderson farm. Contrary to all logic, the headiest ingredient of their moonshine is unfiltered water from Cauldron Lake. The Andersons feel like gods. Odin can't stop laughing. He contemplates cutting his eye out. Tor runs across the field, naked, shrieking, hammer in his hand, trying to catch lightning. Their songs have power. Something ancient is stirring in the depths, coming back.
After arriving to the farm, Wake finds a record that plays Lady of the Light, a song by the Old Gods of Asgard. Before taking a look at the song, let's jump forward to after the end of the story. Even though the Andersons had not played on stage in decades, Alan's childhood best friend and literary agent Barry Wheeler saw the talent they possessed. Choosing to represent them, Barry reinvigorated their career and helped them sign a new record deal. The results of this new career path is currently unknown. Following the instructions left for him, the story takes us to the Bright Falls power plant, where the Keeper is the Lady of the Light the song referred to. She guides him into a room that contains a shoebox with two items. One, a page of Thomas Zane's poem that describes Alan receiving an old light switch from his mother when he was a child. The second was the light switch itself. As a result of the story, this light switch is an altered item that when clicked, turns on the lights. Even though it was the middle of the night, when Alan flips it in this scene, the sun immediately rises into the sky. This becomes his tool to send the dark presence back into its prison. After diving into the lake, he arrives in the dark place and confronts the entity wearing the skin of Barbara Jagger. Alan pushes the clicker into the hole in her chest and flips on the light. Before this confrontation, Alan meets a doppelganger of himself. Thomas Zane explains that his name is Mr. and will replace Alan in the world. However, whether it happened upon his creation or as a result of a corruption within the dark place, Mr. became twisted. He became a dark reflection of Alan, a sadistic serial killer with the ability to move between the real world and the dark place while Alan is trapped inside this threshold. Even though Alan did manage to trap him within a story and burned him away, the images we see in the 15-minute premiere suggest that he may not be entirely gone. Based upon the return trailer, he may even be the one to murder the version of Alex Casey that was manifest in the real world. Alan Wake has been trapped in the dark place for 10 years, unable to free himself. Shortly before Jesse arrived to the oldest house, a typewritten page was slipped under the spiral door, a message from the lost writer. As seen in the AWE trailer, this door to the dark place opens a crack, and the energies within leak out, altering the world. As to what exactly changed during this event and the ultimate fate of Alan, we will have to wait for the AWE expansion later this week to find out.